If we could see the spiritual world for just 5 seconds, if the veil that separates our eyes from the invisible reality were suddenly ripped away, most of us would die of terror on the spot. We walk through our days thinking we are alone in our rooms, alone in our cars, alone in our thoughts. But the mystics tell us that the air around us is thick with traffic. It is crowded with beings of immense power and ancient intelligence, and not all of them are our friends. Saint Paul warned us that we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age. We feel this battle, even if we cannot see it. We feel the sudden, intrusive thought that urges us to despair. We feel the wave of unexplained anger that ruins a family dinner. We feel the cold, heavy grip of anxiety that wakes us up at 3 a.m. We know deep in our bones that we are being hunted. We know that there is a predator in the tall grass of our lives, waiting for a moment of weakness to strike. And this reality forces the human heart to scream the question that has echoed since the Garden of Eden. God, if you are good, and if you are all-powerful, why do you let this monster exist? Why do you allow the devil to roam the earth? Why don't you just snap your fingers and send him back to the abyss forever? This was the exact question that tormented Saint Bridget of Sweden. She was not a theologian sitting in a comfortable library. She was a visionary who was often dragged into the front lines of the spiritual war. In her revelations, specifically in the harrowing visions recorded in Book 1 and Book War, she described seeing the enemies of the human soul. She saw demons. She did not see them as the cartoonish figures with pitchforks that we see in medieval art. She saw them as they truly are, beings of twisted, suffocating hatred. She described them as grotesque, not just in physical form, but in their spiritual essence. They were like black holes of malice, devoid of any light, desperate to drag every living thing into their own misery. She saw them surrounding sinners, whispering lies, encouraging vice, and dancing with glee when a soul fell into mortal sin. The sight was so revolting, so terrifying, that Bridget cried out to Christ in sheer desperation. She asked him with the boldness of a saint, "O Lord, you are the King of glory. You have all power in heaven and on earth. These beasts are your enemies. They hate you, they hate us. Why do you tolerate them? Why do you not annihilate them instantly and give your children peace?" Before we hear the answer that Jesus gave, an answer that completely redefines the meaning of every temptation you have ever felt, I want to pause and ask you to stand with us. Producing these videos is not just about making content, it is about spiritual warfare. We are bringing to light the truths that the enemy wants to keep hidden in the dark. We are arming the faithful with the wisdom of the saints so they can fight back. This mission is difficult, and we face our own battles in keeping this channel alive. If this work has strengthened your faith, if it has given you a sword to fight your own demons, please consider supporting us. You can help by clicking the Super Thanks button to make a donation or by joining our members community. Your support is the fuel that keeps this lighthouse burning in the digital storm. By helping us, you are helping to wake up thousands of other souls who are currently asleep on the battlefield. The answer Jesus gave to Saint Bridget was not an apology. He did not say, "I'm sorry, Bridget, the devil is just too strong, I can't control him." No. The answer was a revelation of absolute terrifying sovereignty. Jesus explained to her that the devil is not a rival God. He is not the evil equivalent of the Creator. He is a creature. He is a rebellious subject who is still, despite his hatred, completely under the command of the King. Jesus used a powerful image that has echoed through the centuries of Catholic theology. He compared the devil to a chained dog. He told Bridget, "I created the angels for glory, but some fell through pride. I could destroy them in an instant. My breath created them, and my breath could unmake them, but I permit them to exist, and I permit them to tempt my children, not because I want you to fall, but because I want you to be crowned." This is the shock. Jesus revealed that the demons, without realizing it, are working for him. They think they are destroying the kingdom of God, but in reality, they are the unwitting architects of the saints' glory. Jesus explained that virtue is not virtue until it is tested. A man who is chaste because he has never seen a beautiful woman is not virtuous. He is just isolated. A man who is patient because no one has ever annoyed him is not holy. He is just untested. For a soul to become a great saint, it must be forged in fire. It must be given the choice between God and the darkness over and over again. The devil is the one who provides the choice. He is the examiner. He is the one who presents the exam paper to the soul. When he tempts you to anger, he is actually giving you the opportunity to practice meekness. When he tempts you to lust, he is giving you the opportunity to practice purity. When he tempts you to despair, he is giving you the chance to practice heroic hope. Jesus told Saint Bridget, "If I took away the tempter, I would be taking away your victory." Imagine an Olympic athlete who trains for 4 years, but shows up to the stadium and finds no opponents. He runs the race alone. He crosses the finish line. Does he get a gold medal? Yes. Does it mean anything? No. It is a hollow victory. The glory of the victory is measured by the strength of the opponent. God wants his children to be warriors, not statues. He wants us to be battle-hardened conquerors who can stand before the throne and say, "Lord, I was attacked, I was besieged, I was whispered to, and I chose you." The devil is the sparring partner. He is the weights in the gym. He is heavy, he is oppressive, and he tries to crush you, but if you push back, you get stronger. The muscle of faith can only be built against the resistance of temptation. This revelation changes the way we look at the permission of evil. We often think that when temptation comes, God has looked away. We think he has abandoned us to the wolves. But Saint Bridget learned that the opposite is true. When temptation comes, it is because the trainer has decided you are ready for a heavier weight. He has signed you up for the championship round. The devil is vicious, yes. He wants to devour you, yes. But he is on a leash. Saint Bridget was shown that the length of the leash is held firmly in the hand of Christ. The devil cannot touch a hair on your head without divine permission. He cannot tempt you beyond your strength. He can bark, he can growl, he can lunge at you with terrifying fury, but he cannot bite unless you willingly step inside the circle of his reach. He has no power to force the human will. He can suggest, he can manipulate, he can lie, but he cannot compel. The final vote always belongs to you. Furthermore, Jesus explained that he uses the demons as the executioners of justice for the wicked. For those who obstinately reject God, the demons serve as the punishment they have chosen. But for the righteous, the demons are the winnowing fork. In biblical times, a farmer would throw the wheat and the chaff into the air. The wind would blow the useless chaff away, but the heavy, valuable wheat would fall back to the threshing floor. The devil is the wind. He blows against the church. He blows against your soul. He tries to unsettle you. And in doing so, he separates the fake Christians from the real ones. He separates your superficial feelings from your true convictions. If you fall away because of a temptation, it reveals that you were chaff. If you stand firm, it proves you are wheat. The temptation clarifies who you are. It reveals your true loyalty. God allows the enemy to shake the house so that we can see if the foundation is built on sand or on rock. But there is a deeper mystery here. Saint Bridget asked, "But Lord, surely we could love you without being tortured by these foul spirits." And Jesus, in his infinite wisdom, revealed the mechanism of humility. He explained that without the constant harassment of the enemy, the human soul, even a holy soul, would inevitably fall into the worst sin of all, pride. We would begin to think that we are naturally good. We would think that we are holy because of our own efforts. We would become like Lucifer. So God leaves the thorn in the flesh. He allows the devil to remind us of our weakness. When we are tempted, we realize how fragile we are. We realize that without God's grace, we are monsters. The temptation forces us to run to God. It forces us to pray. It keeps us on our knees. The sheep only stays close to the shepherd when it hears the howl of the wolf. If there were no wolves, the sheep would wander off the cliff. So the wolf, in a strange and paradoxical way, helps keep the sheep safe. This perspective shifts our fear into a strange kind of gratitude. Not gratitude for the evil itself, but gratitude for the sovereign God who can turn even the malice of hell into a servant of heaven. This leads us to understand the specific dynamics of how to fight, for the enemy is not just a brute force. He is a legalist who knows exactly how to exploit the laws of our own nature against us. The image of the chained dog that Jesus gave to Saint Bridget is not just a comforting metaphor. It is a precise theological definition of the limits of demonic power. It fundamentally changes the way we perceive the battlefield. When we feel the hot breath of a temptation on our necks, when the urge to sin feels overwhelming, our natural reaction is to panic. We feel like a small rabbit cornered by a wolf. But Jesus wants us to understand that the dynamic is actually reversed. The devil is the one on the leash. The chain is held by the hand of God, and the length of that chain is calculated down to the millimeter. Saint Bridget was shown that a demon cannot move 1 inch closer to a soul than God permits. If the temptation is intense, it is because God has let out a little more slack in the chain, not because he has lost control, but because he knows you have the spiritual muscle to handle the tension. The intensity of the attack is actually a compliment from heaven. It means that the trainer looks at you and says, "This one is ready for the heavyweights. This one is ready to level up." This brings us to the concept of the crown of glory, which is central to Saint Bridget's revelations. Jesus explained to her that heaven is not a place for participation trophies. It is a kingdom of conquerors. The glory of a saint is directly proportional to the magnitude of the battles they fought on earth. Think about it. If you never felt the pull of lust, if you were naturally indifferent to money, if you never felt a surge of anger, your virtue would be accidental. It would be cheap. It would be like a man claiming to be a pacifist when he has never been punched in the face. True virtue, the kind that shines like a diamond in eternity, is forged in the friction of resistance. Chastity is not the absence of desire, it is the conquering of desire. Patience is not the absence of annoyance, it is the suppression of wrath. Faith is not the absence of doubt, it is the refusal to despair when the sky is black. Who provides the friction? Who provides the annoyance? Who paints the sky black? The devil does. He is the unwitting supplier of the raw materials for your holiness. Without him, you would be a spiritual infant. With him, you can become a spiritual giant. This reality is hard to accept when you are in the middle of the storm, when the waves are crashing over your head and you feel like you are drowning. It is easy to say, the devil is a tool when life is calm. It is hard to say it when your marriage is under attack or when you are fighting an addiction that feels stronger than your will. If this video is helping you reframe your struggles, if it is giving you a weapon to fight the fear that paralyzed you, please take a moment to like this video. It helps us signal to the algorithm that people are looking for deep, substantial spiritual food, and it might help this message reach someone who is currently sitting in the dark, terrified of their own demons. Jesus further illuminated this mystery for Saint Bridget by explaining the difference between feeling and consenting. So Wazi, this is where the devil scores his biggest victories against good people. He tricks us into thinking that the temptation itself is a sin. He whispers a blasphemous thought into your mind during prayer, or he flashes an impure image in your imagination and then immediately accuses you. Look at you. You are disgusting. How can you call yourself a Christian with thoughts like that? Saint Bridget learned that this is a lie. The dog barking is not a sin. The dog lunging is not a sin. The fear you feel is not a sin. The sin only happens if you reach out your hand, open the gate, and let the dog bite you. The sin is in the will. Jesus told her that 1,000 temptations, no matter how filthy or violent, do not equal a single venial sin if the will does not consent to them. In fact, if you feel the temptation and you hate it, if you grit your teeth and say, "Jesus, help me," you are actually gaining immense merit. You are earning a jewel for your crown at the very moment the devil is trying to steal it. The attack backfires completely. The devil intends to dirty you, but by forcing you to reject him, he actually scrubs you clean. Saint Bridget also saw that the demons are specialists. They are not chaotic, they are organized, they study us. Jesus revealed that the enemy watches a soul with the intensity of a sniper. He looks for the crack in the armor. If you are prone to vanity, he will send a demon of pride to flatter you. If you are prone to sadness, he will send a demon of despair to whisper that nothing matters. If you are prone to anger, he will ensure that you hit every red light on the way to work. This targeted harassment feels cruel, but God allows it because it acts as a diagnostic tool. The temptation reveals the crack. If the devil didn't attack your vanity, you might never know you were vain. You might go to your grave thinking you were humble, only to be shocked at the judgment. The attack forces the weakness to the surface so you can see it, confess it, and fix it. The devil is the harsh inspector who kicks the tires of your soul to show you where the air is leaking. He thinks he is braking the car. God knows he is helping you fix the flat tire before you get on the highway to eternity. Furthermore, there is a dimension of holy jealousy in this permission. Jesus explained that he allows the devil to tempt us to detach us from the world. If the world were always easy, if we were always comfortable, if we never felt the sting of spiritual warfare, we would fall in love with the exile. We would build our homes here in Babylon and forget about Jerusalem. We would become soft, fat, and lazy. But the devil, in his hatred, makes the world a hostile place. He makes us uncomfortable. He chases us. And where does the sheep run when the wolf is chasing it? It runs to the shepherd. The fear of the enemy drives us into the arms of God. The temptation serves as a constant reminder that we are not safe on our own, that we need grace every hour, every minute. It kills our independence. It forces us to live in a state of reliance on God. St. Bridget saw souls who, without temptation, would have drifted away into lukewarm indifference. But because they were attacked, they woke up. They grabbed their rosaries. They ran to confession. The devil, trying to drive them to hell, accidentally drove them straight into the sacraments. This perspective requires a radical shift in our internal posture. We usually pray, "Lord, make the temptation go away." And sometimes, in His mercy, He does. But often the answer is no. The answer is, "My grace is sufficient for you." The answer is, "I am not removing the weight because I am building the muscle." The devil wants you to resent the weight. He wants you to resent God for allowing the struggle. He wants you to say, "It's not fair." But the warrior, the soul trained in the school of St. Bridget, looks at the weight and says, "This is heavy, but it is making me strong." This soul realizes that every time the devil whispers a lie, it is a cue for them to speak the truth. Every time the devil suggests a sin, it is a cue for them to make an act of love. The battlefield becomes a training ground. The enemy becomes a sparring partner, and the fear of the roaring lion is replaced by the confidence of the child who knows that the lion is chained, toothless against the will that refuses to yield, and that the master of the universe is watching every move, ready to step in the moment the fight becomes unfair. But what happens when we actually win? What happens in the invisible world when a weak, fragile human being looks at a powerful ancient demon and says no? St. Bridget was given a glimpse of this, and it is perhaps the most satisfying revelation of all. We tend to think that the battle is one-sided, that the devil is the one inflicting pain on us while we just endure it. But Jesus revealed that the weapon cuts both ways. When a soul resists temptation, it inflicts a specific, excruciating spiritual pain on the demon. The no of a faithful Christian burns the spirits of darkness like acid. We are not just defending ourselves, we are counterattacking. Our virtue is offensive, our purity is a weapon. And in the final analysis of this war, we will discover that by standing firm, we were not just surviving. We were humiliating the powers of hell, turning their own schemes into the very ladder we climbed to reach the heart of God. The revelation that our resistance to temptation is actually a form of spiritual offense against the powers of darkness changes the entire dynamic of the battle. We are not merely punching bags for the enemy. We are soldiers capable of inflicting severe wounds on his pride. But before we explore the specific mechanics of this humiliation of Satan and how it secures our final victory, I need to make a direct appeal to you, the soldiers who are watching this. We are engaged in a form of digital spiritual warfare here. We are taking the heavy, often forgotten weapons of the church and putting them into the hands of thousands. But just like any army, we cannot fight without supplies. If this channel has become a source of strength for you, I am asking you to consider becoming a member. For less than $2 a month, a truly negligible amount that is less than a cup of coffee, you can help ensure that this voice remains loud and clear. Your membership not only keeps the lights on, but also gives you access to exclusive videos, like our deep dive into the General Confession, that go even further into these practical tools for salvation. Please click the Join button below. It is a small sacrifice for you, but it is the lifeblood of this mission. Now let us look at the humiliation of Satan. St. Bridget saw something in her visions that is both terrifying and deeply satisfying. She saw that the devil is an entity consumed by pride. He believes he is the most magnificent, intelligent, and powerful being ever created. He looks at humans, creatures made of dust and water, weak, emotional, and fragile, with absolute contempt. He sees us as mud creatures. Therefore, when a mud creature defeats him, the pain he feels is excruciating. When a teenage boy, flooded with hormones and surrounded by a pornographic culture, looks at a screen and says, no because he loves Jesus, that act of will hits the devil like a physical blow. It is a cosmic embarrassment. It is like a grandmaster chess player being checkmated by a toddler. The devil's pride cannot handle the fact that a creature so much lower than him has the power to reject his influence. Jesus explained to Saint Bridget that this is one of the primary reasons he allows the temptation to continue. He uses the weakness of humans to judge the arrogance of demons. Every time you resist a temptation, you are participating in the judgment of the angels. You are proving that humility and grace are stronger than intellect and power. The devil attacks you to destroy you, to prove to God that you are trash. But when you stand firm, you prove to God and to the devil that you are a son or a daughter of the King. You turn the accusation back on the accuser. The temptation, which was meant to be a pit for you to fall into, becomes a pedestal for you to stand on. Saint Bridget saw demons fleeing from humble souls, not because they were afraid of the human, but because they could not bear the burning shame of being defeated by them. Your purity is a mirror that shows them their own ugliness, and they cannot stand to look at it. This leads to the concept of the ladder of thorns. In one of her most profound visions, Saint Bridget saw a ladder reaching up to heaven. But the rungs of the ladder were not made of smooth wood. They were made of swords, thorns, and sharp rocks. These represented the temptations, the insults, the persecutions, and the struggles of life. She saw souls trying to climb. Some looked at the sharp rungs and said, "This is too hard. God is cruel." They refused to climb and they stayed in the mud. But others looked at the ladder and understood the secret. They realized that without the rungs, sharp as they were, there was no way to go up. If the ladder were smooth, they would slide down. They needed the resistance of the thorns to get a grip. They grabbed the swords of temptation, and though their hands bled, they pulled themselves up. Jesus revealed to her that the very things we complain about, the difficult boss, the nagging spouse, the persistent urge to drink, the intrusive thoughts, are the rungs. They are the friction we need to ascend. A climber cannot climb a polished glass wall. He needs cracks, bumps, and jagged edges to find a hold. The devil provides the jagged edges. He thinks he is putting obstacles in your path, but God is using those obstacles as the very means of your ascent. If you remove the struggle, you remove the climb. If you remove the climb, you remove the view from the top. The saint is not the man who had a smooth ladder. The saint is the man who had the roughest ladder and kept climbing anyway, knowing that the pain in his hands was the price of the altitude of his soul. This completely rewires our reaction to the barking dog. When the dog barks, when the temptation comes, we usually freeze in fear. We think, "Oh no, I am in danger." Saint Bridget teaches us to think, the trainer has arrived, the gym is open. We must learn to decouple the sensation of temptation from the reality of sin. You can feel a temptation to kill someone in a moment of rage. You can feel the heat of it in your chest. You can see the image in your mind. The devil is screaming, "Do it!" But if you stand there hands shaking and say, "Lord, I offer this anger to you. I will not act on it. You have just bench pressed 500 pounds of spiritual weight. You have grown. You are stronger in that moment than you were 10 minutes ago." The feeling was not a sin. The feeling was the weight. The rejection was the repetition. And the result is spiritual muscle that will last for eternity. Saint Bridget also saw the final veto power of the human will. This is the ultimate comfort. She saw that the devil can shout, he can conjure illusions, he can manipulate our emotions, he can even affect our health, but he hits an invisible wall when he reaches the center of the soul. He cannot cross the threshold of the free will. He has to wait outside and knock. He can knock with a feather, pleasure, or he can knock with a hammer, fear, but he cannot kick the door down. Only you have the handle. The handle is on the inside. This means that no matter how dark the room gets, no matter how loud the noise is, you are safe as long as you keep your hand off the latch. You have the absolute God-given power to say no. The devil tries to convince us that we are weak, that we couldn't help it, that the temptation was too strong. That is his greatest lie. Jesus told Saint Bridget, "My grace is sufficient." This means there is never a moment, not once in human history, where a temptation was truly irresistible. Every fall was a choice. Every sin was a surrender of the fort, not a conquering of it. Finally, imagine the scene at the Last Judgment as described in the spirit of Saint Bridget's revelations. The soul stands before Christ. The devil is there, the accuser, holding the list of all the times he attacked you. He says, "Look, Lord, I sent him poverty, I sent him lust, I sent him doubt, I hammered him every day for 40 years. And Christ will look at the devil, then look at you and smile. He will say to the enemy, "I know, I allowed it, and look what you made him." Ideally, he will point to a soul that has become like steel tempered in fire. He will say, "Your attacks burned away his vanity. Your persecution taught him patience. Your temptations forced him to rely on me. You thought you were destroying him, but you were actually carving him into my image. Thank you for your service." And the humiliation of the enemy will be complete. He will realize that he spent 6,000 years working overtime to populate heaven with warriors who are stronger than he ever was. So the next time you feel the shadow of the enemy fall over your day, do not despair. Do not ask, "Why me?" Ask, "What for?" Realize that you have been trusted with a battle. The chain is holding. The dog is barking because he is afraid of you, not the other way around. He sees the light of God in you and he hates it. Stand your ground. Keep your hand off the latch. Use the temptation as a ladder. And remember that the struggle you feel today is simply the sound of your own sanctification happening in real time. The war is real, the enemy is vicious, but the victory is already written for those who simply refuse to give up.